attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and good evening. My name is Marcia Noel, Assistant to the City Manager, your moderator for our fourth night of our Waste Management Community Meeting. I want to thank everybody that is listening in on this call. I see that we have attendees joining us by computer. If you are joining us by social media, such as YouTube or on TV 18, I ask that you so kindly let other people know to jump on this call as well. We want to welcome District 3. We're excited to get to converse about something I matters to each and every one of us that impacts us on the day to day, and that is your trash pickup. And so, just to kind of give you an understanding as for why we're holding these meetings is because we know that in next year, we're looking to our current contract closing up with waste management. And so as part of our process towards getting towards that, and whatever the procurement process would be for services like that, we want to make sure that we incorporate your feedback, your input in terms of your experiences and what you're looking to when it comes to waste management services. So we want you to be comfortable and honest with us as to what your perspective is. No perspective is going to be not valuable. Every thought, every question, we're going to take that to heart. It's going to be valuable to your elected officials and to your city administration. With that being said, I want to quickly give you a layout as to what our meeting will look like this evening. And so what we're going to start off with is just a brief introduction by the city manager. Councilperson Lanier is expected to join our call, and whenever she does, we'll allow her to share a few words with you as well. But the core of it is really going to be a set of presentations that we have prepared for you. This evening, we have our procurement director, Ms. Althea Pimsel, who'll be sharing some information with you. In addition, our interim public works director, Mr. Terrence Bailey, who will also share some information. And then finally, we'll have our city manager, Jonathan Evans, present you with information as well. Afterwards, we will open it up for any questions that you may have or comments or concerns. So with that being said, without further ado, I will hand the mic over to our city manager for a few words.
Good evening, Riviera Beach, and thank you for taking your time this evening to share your comments with us. This is an opportunity to talk trash with city staff. So we want to hear your input, your feedback, your perspective with regards to the waste services that are currently being provided. We have a relationship with Waste Management, and we've had one for well over 5+ years. And that contract is coming to its expiration. So we're going to go through a competitive solicitation process to get feedback as to who is going to buy or which company is going to come and provide service to our community. So it's important that we have discussions with our community in a safe and socially responsible manner to get your input and feedback. Once we get all the information that you provide us this evening, that will go forward in conversations with the elected body, who will work with staff in crafting a request for proposal, and then we will enter into conversation to So thank you for joining us this evening, and I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Noel.
All right, thank you, Mr. Evans. Now we're going to get into presentations. So with that said, our first presentation is going to basically be a layout as to how our current service model is set up. That'll be presented to you by Mr. Terrence Bailey.
Good evening, everyone. Terrence Bailey, your Public Works Director. As I'm sure you are familiar, our current service model is that residents are provided bulk pickup and vegetation pickup once a week, and general garbage is collected twice a week for single-family residents. And with that, I'll return it to you, Ms. Noel. Thank you.
All right, that was very straightforward and quick to the point. And so now we're going to go into the second piece to this, and this is going to be the procurement process presented to you by Ms. Pimsel. Ms. Pimsel, I think you're still muted.
It helps if you unmute. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this. We are looking forward to getting the comments and concerns from the community, as this is a very important solicitation. So procuring waste management services, when does the procurement process begin and with whom? The process began when the scope of work and input from the following sources: from our council, from you, the community, from the city manager, and from the public works director. What does the solicitation entail, and what are the most important parts? When the city services will be provided, and the frequency. That is the most important part. How often and when would it be? Whether it's twice a week, once a week, whatever. That's a very important aspect of it. The type of equipment that's needed to service our community based on the community roads and neighborhoods. The evaluation criteria and the community benefits. The evaluation criteria will be composed of things like the firm organization and qualification, their team and the profile, their approach to the scope of work, their small business and women-owned and minority business outreach. Those things are very important, as well as the community benefits. Some of the community benefits we're interested in are things like whether they have a satellite office, whether they will offer what's called a living wage, as well as what sort of workforce outreach they would do in our actual community. So after we receive the information and we compile this data, the next step is that we will review and consolidate everything that we receive, your comments especially. We'll draft a solicitation. It is then reviewed, approved, and then issued through our bidding software. After solicitation is issued, we hold a pre-bid meeting to answer any questions, and we receive proposals. We review against the criteria, some of the criteria I listed, and then we submit the results to council for review and approval. I thank you so much for your input. It's very important to us, and we look forward to receiving it. I turn it back over to you, Ms. Noel.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pimsel. All right, so our third and final presentation is going to be provided to you by our city manager to provide you with more of a historic background and to also provide you with the financial piece to this. Mr. Evans?
Thank you, everybody, again. And certainly before I get into my presentation, Ms. Noel, if you can communicate the number that folks will have to respond or have an opportunity to interact with the panel before I get into my presentation. And we'll make sure we put a scroll on the bottom of the channel so you can text in your questions. So this is an interactive conversation. Ms. Noel?
Yes, so during this piece of the presentations, if you have any questions or comments that you want to share, if you are listening in by phone, if you are watching us on TV 18 or social media, you can text me directly at 561-346-0199. Again, that's 561-346-0199 for any comments, questions, or concerns that you have during the course of our presentations. If you've joined us by computer, you can simply just share your questions through the question feature. And all you have to do is just go into that little chat box, that text box, and submit that to me, and I'll make sure to share any questions or comments that anyone sends to me.
Well, again, thank you, Ms. Noel. And it's certainly important to have that interaction, and that's why I briefly paused my presentation. So to hit on some of the components that were articulated in Ms. Pimsel's presentation is we certainly want to make sure that we do business with a solid waste provider that compensates their employees fairly and equitably, that is committed in having some type of presence in our community, whether it's a storefront or a satellite office to be able to answer citizen inquiries or provide exceptional service. We're looking for that investment in the city of Riviera Beach the same way we would invest in them as our solid waste provider. This contract is a multi-million-dollar contract. This contract over the term of its duration will probably be a $35 to $40 million contract that the city will let for solid waste services. So it is a major contract, and that's why it's so important that you participate in the conversation and discussion that we're having this evening. So to get into the nuances of the presentation and what's incorporated, let's talk about why we're here. Obviously, we want your input. We want your feedback. We want to know what you like and what you dislike about the current services. We hope that we can incorporate all the things that you as the residents are looking for in our solid waste services contract to make sure that we do everything in our power to beautify our community, to make sure it's aesthetically pleasing, and to make sure that that solid waste and that trash, waste, and debris gets moved out as soon as it's put on the curb. And so it's going to require you telling us, what do you like? What do you don't like? What would you like to see modified? Are the costs too much or the costs too little, or are they just about right? One thing that we're also trying to get your input on is the possibility or feasibility at the end of this proposed 5-year term. Would you be interested in the city of Riviera Beach providing this service as a municipal entity? Now, that will cost you roughly about $75 more a year, or $5 or $6 per month, but you will create local jobs and you will provide for local control, the ability to be able to address some of the challenges that we have in our community at the drop of a dime with our service if the city of Riviera Beach is providing the service. With the contractual provider, in most cases, they're very responsive, being able to go back and pick up trash, waste, and debris if they're still in the area. But if they're not in the area, then that poses a challenge for us. But we want to look at this with a open perspective and say, what is the best value for the buck as we move forward? So a little bit about the solid waste services that are currently being provided. The city of Riviera Beach decided to outsource its trash and waste services in 1994-1995. Based on the information that we were able to glean from previous budget documents, it was assumed that that was the banking crisis. There was also an economic downturn, as well as capital funding was not set aside to be able to deal with the investments necessary to continue to accommodate the service. So it was a lot of challenges that the city was facing at that particular time. So they decided to go through a solicitation and bring on a private provider. The current provider is Waste Management. Their service contract is set to expire in September or October of 2021. The intent of us having the conversation so early is that the competitive solicitation process is a very tedious and cumbersome process, and we want to make sure that we get your input and feedback, and we have adequate time to make sure that we get the best provider to be able to provide the service here in our community. So the residents of Riviera Beach pay $11.92 for solid waste services that's currently being outsourced. On October 1st of 2020, you'll pay $11.95 for the service. We've also done a pretty extensive analysis looking at other municipalities that provide solid waste services that are insourced. The town of Jupiter provides the service at roughly about $13.92 per month, and West Palm Beach is $17.60 per month, and those are city operated outfits. Now, realize this, that this does not include the commercial component, because that is a specialized market and there is additional revenue that's associated with commercial entities. So Waste Management, just on the residential side, generates roughly about $7.8 million per year. And then they contribute roughly about $1.7 million in admin fees that are levied associated with the services that are being provided. So like I said earlier, it is a very lucrative contract when we talk about solid waste services. And this is separate and apart to the business outfit that is a specialized commercial operation that they can basically set their service delivery model. Restaurants may want their trash disposed of every day. Certain businesses may want it once a week. So it is really specialized as it relates to the containers that the business community utilizes to provide to receive services from waste management. So what would it look like if the city of Riviera Beach wanted to explore the opportunity to create a solid waste division or department? Well, most likely it will require us to get through this 5-year contract and commence in 2026, 2027. Based on the capital outlay or the anticipated costs associated with this particular operation, you're looking at roughly about a $21 million capital outlay to acquire vehicles, totes, dumpsters, compactors, and other complementary assets that are necessary to provide the service. Prior to moving in that direction, the city would need to generate roughly about $2.5 million annually to cover the debt service that's associated with that capital issuance. The cost to residents, as I said earlier, would be about $5 to $6 per month. The projected cost for residents would be anywhere between $17.95 per month up to $21.43 with a inflation rate of roughly about 4% over a 5-year period. Now, I do want to communicate that we would look at the municipal cost index as it relates to increases associated with that, but that is the minimum that would be necessary to pay for the bond issuance to receive the capital necessary to spin up the new solid waste division for the city of Riviera Beach. So what would be comprised in the solid waste operations? So you're looking at about 23 full-time equivalent positions, so 23 persons. Personnel projected costs would be about $2 million. Number of solid waste vehicles, about 25. And so we would get automated side loaders, we'd get vehicles to handle the commercial side of the shop, as well as the costs associated with workers' compensation, which would be about $40,000 annually. The cost for the 96-gallon totes that you utilize to put your trash in, that would be a capital acquisition cost of roughly about $6 million. And that would be a cost that you would need to budget out, obviously a couple years. Usually those things have a 7 to 10 year lifespan, and you would need to also have spares to be able to accommodate the public in the event that you needed to replace or repair them because of damage. The cost for operating facilities and equipment would roughly be about $15.6 million. And your projected tipping fee, which is the cost that is paid to the Solid Waste Authority, would roughly be about $525,000 per year. The cost differential for the city of Riviera Beach to provide the service versus Waste Management. Waste Management, as it stands today, can provide the service for about 8% cheaper. And that doesn't, again, account for the commercial aspect. The commercial side is usually the most profitable business side of the solid waste business and routinely ends up in facilitating and subsidizing residential pickup, as it is a major profit center for solid waste providers. So when we look at our analysis, we said, okay, the cost for providing the service minus the expenditures, we project on a conservative side that we can generate roughly about $2.3 million per year. This does not account for the commercial side. So this is a very conservative number. This is a number that we feel comfortable that starting in 2026, in the event that we wanted to go down this road, is that we can roughly easily account for $2.3 million in excess revenue that can be utilized for additional investments in capital infrastructure related to the solid waste operation, facility improvements, vehicle purchases, employee compensation, etc. And one of the things I do want to also make sure is that when we look at the revenue that's associated with it, we would run this operation as a business. It would be an enterprise fund. And what I mean by enterprise fund, it would be similar to that of the utility district. Your utility operation the revenue that's collected when you pay your utility bills is used exclusively for providing that service. It is not utilized to pay for police and fire and other departments. It's an enterprise, it's a business enterprise. And so this would be established in the same form and fashion. So it will be a standalone operation that the revenues would pay for the expenditures, and it would be a profit, a projected profit as a result of the operation. So lastly, we know things get solved when you get involved. And so we certainly want to hear your input and feedback and what we can do to provide exceptional service in the next contract. Now, we know that the long term may be to move towards the city of Riviera Beach providing the service again, but it may be to continue to contract out this operation, because I said earlier, the cost for the service right now as it stands is cheaper for the private provider to provide the service. Nonetheless, we wanted the community to respond holistically and look at the work that staff is doing to give all the options to the policymakers to make a decision as to how to move forward. And so this is really an opportunity for us to hear from you, the services that are being provided, ways that the providers can know what the community's needs and concerns are. Some of the things we've heard is surveying the customers. We've heard about engaging or making investments to some of the existing assets, making sure they clean up after their vehicles traverse our community. In some cases, there are some challenges in some of the neighborhoods with regards to that. Also, the private developments that we have in our community, the gated communities. How do we make sure that the level of service there is fair and equitable and is not a situation that is, in essence, double cost or double taxation, if you want to utilize that terminology? So all is on the table, and we want to hear your feedback and input, and I can't wait to have the discussion with our community. And I turn it back over to you, Ms. Noel.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. That was very, very informative. And to what he said earlier, things get solved when you get involved, and this is your opportunity to do so, because we've now just entered into our question and answer portion. So with that being said, I didn't get any questions during the presentation, but this is certainly your time to do so. It could be a question, it can be a comment, it could be a concern, whatever it may be, or even a commendation, it's fine. So if you've joined us by computer, again, you can use your questions feature to send in a question, or if you rather be heard audibly, you can raise your hand. You can click the hand icon to the top left in that toolbar. It'll indicate to me to unmute your line so that you can speak. And then if you've joined us by phone or TV18 or social media, again, you can text me at 561-346-0199. Again, 561-346-0199. And I'll allow for a few seconds to allow you to provide your question. All right, I'm not seeing any questions yet. I know that there is a bit of a lag on social media and TV18 because it is being streamed. So in all fairness, I want to allow some time for anyone watching in those different ways.
So I'll pose a question to Mr. Bailey. Mr. Bailey, from a contract administrator perspective, what is the complaint or the issue that is most commonly communicated to your staff with the existing services that are being provided?
I'd say the issue that arises the most is cans that are not picked up. There may be some confusion, or inevitably somebody overslept and they roll their can out and they're not really sure whether the truck has already passed them by, and then they get back later on in the day, and they call our office to try to get a pickup because they don't necessarily want their trash at their home for another 2 or 3 days until their second service of the week. That is probably our most frequent issue, second only to illegal dumping. We had a very robust conversation last week in reference to concern from the public about illegal dumping. There are those that believe that there's a perception in our surrounding communities that it's okay for people to just dump their construction debris or other elements of trash in our neighborhoods. And I said it before and I'll say it again. I get no greater pleasure than finding out that the police have pulled over and arrested somebody from doing illegal dumping. You will get your vehicle towed and impounded for illegally dumping in the city of Riviera Beach. We have staff looking out. We have residents. Residents call our office and let us know that there's somebody who looks like they're doing illegal dumping, and we jump right to it and bring the police with us in order to prosecute them appropriately. We want the message out there in Palm Beach County that Riviera Beach will not accept illegal dumping. And so that the residents know, we will remove all that material because we have to in order to keep our community beautiful, but we all pay for that. That is not a free service from Waste Management. We get an invoice every month on the volume of illegal dumping material that was collected. So the better job we do on enforcement on illegal dumping, the more money we'll save for ourselves as a community. So those are really the two hot button items for Public Works under the current contract.
So if somebody has a question or an inquiry or a service related item, the wheel on my tote is broken, how do they respond? How do they interact and get information from your staff or get service from Waste Management?
Well, Mr. Evans, I'm glad you asked that. Right now, what we would prefer, there's a button on the city's website for a service request. It's called Q Alert, but you'll see it on the website toward the bottom. And that way you can put in whatever your request is, your service need, and what that does, it provides us an area or a methodology for accountability. If that service request is not addressed timely, it'll escalate to my desk from our frontline personnel. And my staff, again, does not address that situation timely. That will escalate to Mr. Evans' desk. Of course, then I will quickly get an email on what's going on with this situation. So the first best methodology is use the ticketing service request that we have on our website. Otherwise, I'd invite all of the residents to call the Public Works main line at 561-845-4080. 561-845-4080. And one of my staff will answer the phone and can take your service request and get you assistance immediately. To that point, we had a resident who had a concern on our call Thursday night, and by Friday, I believe 10 or 11 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Evans, Waste Management had called them. My staff had reached out to them multiple times, and we were able to resolve an issue for residents that was brought up in this very meeting on Thursday night. So we are very responsive and responsible as caretakers of the service for the residents of Riviera Beach.
All right, so if there's no further comments, I do have now, this is the first time I'm doing this, but for the sake of inclusion, I have Ms. Bram on my phone. Ms. Bram, do you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, wonderful. So can you hear Ms. Bram? Ms. Bram speak?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, they can hear you, Ms. Bram. So if you can go ahead and proceed with your question.
Hello, staff. Hope that everybody is being safe. Number one, I am not for fielding this out. It is cheaper. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I can't hear you, but you can hear me, right?
Yes, they can hear
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I am not for fielding bringing this in-house simply due to the fact that if we were to RFP this out again, without keeping solid waste, we still would be on a lesser pole. I think so. Because in the presentation, it was already stated that Riviera Beach is cheaper with the private entity, but that is something that you as a board or the other staff will have to work through. I do have a problem with the trucks. I've often made mention about those unclean trucks. They smell horrible. Once when they come in to pick up our garbage, it's leakage also in those trucks. I made mention to that with some of the service providers. On my street, I want solid waste to come in and get this red marking out from on our street that came from their trucks, because my neighbors as well saw that as well. I did make mention about that to the driver as well. Now, with it being in-house, we've gone that route before. I, as a resident, feel as if that we shouldn't go back that way. Now, if we can fill it out, if we are dissatisfied with solid waste, it is other companies out there too. But we as a city should be in the position that if we do negotiate any type of contract, it should be what we as a city want, not what they want. Because solid waste has came in here for 5 years with this pay to play. See, you get a little stagnated when you throw in the boards $90,000 a year so they can pay to play and just harvest that money with their little pet peeves, little projects. That has been one of the sticklers in this community with that community benefit. We pay into that as well. I know you set it up for your nonprofit friends, but if everybody pulls in that money, we have seniors and community homes here that need windows, doors. Our seniors are in desperate need here, and they are nonprofit agencies. Miss Noel was trying to do a presentation, and we as residents, we saw that, and she was cut down. We totally in agreement in reconstructing that. I don't care who you get to come in here, but there are concerns with this contract, and solid waste in its entirety. If you want to do business, you should come in without sweetening the pot. If anything, you should sweeten your pot for the entire city that is inclusive with the residents. Because we have been left out of that pot, but we play into that pot. When you give those commissioners on a quarterly basis what you give them. And I think solid waste, I speak firmly, because this is what you have done. And you have put this bad taste with us, because we look at your services being, okay, you're going to get the contract because you're going to sweeten that pot there. We must stop doing business as usual. We are that's better than that. Our streets look trashy. Trashy. Now, I know that when we were in that position before, now we always talk about jobs. We as residents, we're so tired of hearing about how many jobs that every person will come in to want to do business. That's that play page. How many game jobs that will be gained through this service? Come in presenting your plan. That's basic for the sales so that the residents can invest in it, not just sweeten the pot. Because this is what some of the businesses have done in this great city here. And we are tired. And we are on the move. And I'm going to say we are on the move. So now as a resident, and I have gotten with other residents, and a lot of them feel the same way. We can have better service, but it is up to our leaders to enforce that betterment of how we can be served. And if you want to do business, come in doing business with a good attitude and not taking us for granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bram. I appreciate it. All right. So with that being said, and I'm gonna hang up the phone now, Ms. Bram.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So with that being said, anyone wants to respond? Any thoughts?
Yes, certainly to Ms. Bram's comments. And those are the kind of remarks that we need to hear. Those are the types of feedback that we can provide the board. We have had the discussion with the board as it relates to community benefits. That is a program that has been discussed with the board, and the board's opinion is that as we move forward with subsequent contract renewals, that would be not contract renewals, but the new competitive solicitation process, that there is an intent to do something as it relates to community benefits, whether it's modify the program, whether it's alter the program, whether it's get rid of the program. That's a policy decision that the board would need to go forth with. But to Ms. Bram's point, there has been comments and communications that has occurred from the community as a result of that. And that would be information that we would be provided. Ms. Bram is absolutely correct. If the services were provided by the city based on our analysis, the cost will probably be more than what you're paying now. And in the spirit of transparency, what the long-term cost would be over a stretch of 10 or 15 years, that would require more in-depth analysis. And so all that information is information that staff is currently looking at to be able to provide the community and the policymakers with what they believe is in the best interest of the community and let them make a decision. So always, as we always appreciate Ms. Bram's comments and passion and involvement in our community as well as others, please do not let this be the only time that we have a conversation about this. Ms. Noel is going to provide ways to reach out to us as we collect data. We have an email address that will be provided that will speak to, if you have any additional comments or you want to call us about it, we will share every and all bits of information with the policymakers as they deliberate on how to move our community forward and how to ensure that we get a responsible provider that obviously addresses some of the concerns that were articulated by Ms. Bram.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Evans. So before we bring things to a closure, I do have one, I guess, comment left from a resident that emailed me today. And it says, please be advised that I am not in favor of the city taking over garbage collection from the Solid Waste Authority. I'm satisfied with the service, especially if it is going to cost the citizens of Riviera Beach more. Unless the Solid Waste Authority has done something illegal, this idea should be dropped. The City Council should be working on improving the lives of citizens of Riviera Beach. With the ongoing pandemic, I am sure the City Council should be concerned about other things for its citizens. Thank you, and continue to mask up and vote. Carlin Cunningham. All right, so I think that will complete our comments from the community. Again, we want to thank you for taking time this evening. Like I've said in our other meetings, you know, you could have been doing something else, but rather you chose to spend the last 30 minutes or so with us. And so we appreciate that because this is something unique. And given that we're in a pandemic, we're still trying to make it work. So we appreciate you testing this out with us. With that being said, to what Mr. Evans said, the recordings of all the meetings are online. You can find the recording of this meeting on our YouTube channel. It's Riviera Beach FL TV. And oh, I think I'm getting a resident comment. I'm actually going to read that comment that just came in through text after I share this. But they're stored online on YouTube. And if you want to send us any questions or comments after the meeting, you can feel free to do so at City Manager's Office at rivierabeach.org. Again, City Managers with an S, office at rivierabeach.org. We're essentially going to collect all the information that's been shared since last week, and we're going to use that, analyze that information, and present that to our decision makers as the process continues. So before I end with my final announcement, I'm going to go ahead and share a comment that I just received. Just give me 1 second. All right. Good evening, Miss Marcia. This is Miss Polk. I feel that the council should give the community benefits back to the city to be placed in the capital. There are seniors in the city that needs desperate assistance with their roofs and etc. So let's bring back Miss Marcia on the ideas that can be used for these community benefits. Thank you, Miss Polk. All right. So on my last announcement is very important, and I think it's actually relevant to what we're talking about. But it's the 2020 census. I have to bring it. I bring it up every time. I know some people are probably annoyed by it because they've probably done their census, but we have a few days left. I think 9 days left till the census closes. The last day to take your census is September 30th. So therefore, if you are watching this now or later, I urge you and I challenge you to complete the census if you have not already, or to let your neighbors know, your family who are residing here know to take the census. This is an every 10-year opportunity, and we don't want to miss out. Otherwise, we wait till 2030. And we're talking about bringing our taxpayer dollars back to our own city to see the improvements you want to see with regards to infrastructure, public safety, education, you name it, the census will affect it. So you can go online, complete your census at 2020census.gov, or you can call and do your census by phone. Simply dial 844-330-2020. Again, it's 844-330-2020. Again, thank you for a wonderful night. You've made our night. And this concludes our waste management community meetings. Please be safe, and we'll see you again. Good night.